Okay, so the question I'm actually after is um, changing your perspective, and it seems that most wholesales are actually trying to narrow down their lines, right?
Correct.
And trying to have knowledge based selling, not
There you go.
lowest price selling,
There you
right?
go.
Um,
Yep.
what is what is your business now as you progress forward? What are you trying to instill? What are your core values? What are you trying to help the salespeople get into a professional sales role?
Bingo. Great question. And a truly great question. What I've discovered over the many years is sales training at all levels, plumbing distributor, sales agencies themselves, manufacturers, plumbing contractors, mechanical contractors, is the almost or near last item on their next year's budget list. So there, I start there. And when you do get these folks on the phone or you have a face to face with them, and you ask that question, what is their budget for training for their, it's just horrifying to discover that it's really not on their list. Picture a professional sales rep agency who only get paid a commission. So if they don't sell anything, they don't get paid. You would think that you would want to hone the skills of your outside sales team and your inside sales team and your warehouse sales team to fulfill those orders, those questions, those phone calls. So what am I doing? I did my a classic first seek to understand before we seek to be understood. Setback, no different than yourself and your team sitting back saying, okay, we need to first seek to understand who that market and who the customers are before we seek to be understood in our presentations. So, to your point, I kept it real simple. First and foremost was to change the approach from sell and tell, that come in, throw it against the wall, what sticks, sticks. And I've taken it a step further. I start with, and this is shocking, horrifying, all those levels we spoke of. I open up each of the discussions and training sessions, even some of the keynote speaking events, with the four different personality styles. I start right there. Vresh and myself were exposed to that, and it was a showstopper. It's when your clients understand the four different personality styles, it now changes their behavior of how to prepare and present to those personality styles. That's a change to the industry. As we now we get their attention, we move away from that sell and tell. I want to circle back to it, to the now 8 steps of consultative selling. And you happen to be have sitting next to a genius who has consultative selling steps embedded in his brain. Vreshin has got it down to a science. Seriously. And Jeff, you hit the nail on the head. It's solution selling or solution based. Listen to the customer. So it's a classic listen more, sell more. Understand. So it's a classic greet. There's a rapport. Ask them open ended questions, because, of course, sales and marketing professionals have always been trained not to ask closed end questions, open end questions. The closed end question actually does get answered is when they're closing the order. You're welcome to order, ask a closed end question. But the open end questions, so there's that discovery and drilling down and peeling back, as we all heard, to understand, oh, there's a concern. Oh, there's a hot button. There's a pain point. Ah, great. So if I've heard you correctly, then, Jeff, so this is the step number 4. If we've heard you correctly, this and that, and the way the trucks are delivered, and your guys are on site at 7:30, but really they're not starting until 8 by the time you get through the traffic. What if we were to deliver at 5:30 in the morning? Would that help you with? Well, yeah, but you guys are higher. Well, listen, to have a guy at 5:30, that means we got to load that truck at 3. Versus your guys starting at 8:30. I see value in that. Well, what's your? Well, we're 5 points higher than the. You know what? I like your idea. So my return on investment is I'm picking up the an hour and a half of guys standing around twisting their thumbs, but I paid an extra 5% for the value they're bringing to me. Sold.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden, it's the 8 steps of consultative selling. And now the customer and yourself have a true relationship, because I have understand the pain that you're dealing with. and we can provide a solution,
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
example.
Even though the line item is more, the actual
Right.
value is better and it's less money overall. And that's
There's your,
where that's the one thing that I think has been lost in the
correct.
years is understanding
Yep,
the overall cost
correct.
versus the value, right?
Got it.
I mean, this is
And once,
so. Go ahead.
go ahead, excuse me, please.
I think we've talked about this a couple times in the concept of price versus cost,
Yeah.
right? So what's your price today, and what's that long term cost? And it's something that really seems to get on my nerves when talking to certain people, especially on the commercial side of the mechanical business, is understanding labor costs, right? And then that's one of the big things that I usually find most people don't really seem to understand the value of labor time saved, right? Man hours that you save, whether it's a union shop or a non-union shop, you can break it down into minutes. And we used to have this conversation back in the days we used to run together, Greg, where it was, I think it was a product that we used to sell that would basically allow for them to, instead of having to destroy a bunch of concrete to repour or to reinstall a particular product, all you got to do is lift up something and screw it in, and there you go. And it's like it's $2.50 if you're union shop per minute per guy.
There you go.
And on top of that, your GC's costs. Whereas, and if you're non-union, it's it's $1.50 or $1.75 a minute, right? Is this $10 widget not worth 17 minutes of
Yep,
your guys' time?
correct. Times $2.50. I'm glad you're still using that. I learned that so many years back when we were calling on a mechanical down in the U.S. And he said, Greg, we don't quote and break it down by the hour like we used to. We break it down by the how many men I have on the job site, or we have on the job site by the minute.
Yep.
So when I heard that, I was like, wow. However, there is an easy equation. The mechanical contractors, general contractors typically look at labor, as we all know, as 50% of any said bid, a $13 million mechanical project. You've got 50% material, 50% labor. But then to Vresh's point, as we come in with that value, not proposition, understanding the value and the value of your time. And the best part is when you, the sales professional, say to the procurement manager and or a superintendent, or better yet, the owner of the firm, a mechanical firm, you know, we know the union book states that this particular product is slotted for 1 hour and 45 minutes to install this. We listen to the industry. We've created a product that saves 45 minutes from installation times 20 of these that are on this project at $2.50 times 90. Well, quickly that owner says, whoa, tell me more about this. So you're right, Vershan. Those are some of the professional approaches that are logical, they're real, and they're dollars and cents.
And are those kind of scenarios, is that something that you review as you go through with your salespeople on?
I do, correct. Some of the things that I like to do when I'm training, Vershan came through this training process, and rule number one when you're training a sales professional, the rule number one I choose to use as mine is never mess with the expense account.
Yep.
It's not your money. Rule number one, it's not your money. It's someone else's money. Don't even think about it, not even a penny. It's rule number one. Rule number two is set goals and then work towards them daily. And then you start going down the road of understanding rejection. That's little talked about. But when you're training, I also have the blessing of career coaching a few individuals. So I take the time to help, to share with them the understanding of rejection. And then when we speak, some of these clients are monthly calls. We start with weekly calls. So in those weekly calls, I'll have them be conscious and cognizant of the rejection and understand it, and then now understand to learn from it and how to become stronger and how not to take that home with you. When they realize that it's the cold calls, you got to make 17 cold calls on average, gentlemen, before you get a hit. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. 17 cold calls before you actually get a real live conversation. That's the average.
Wow.
So I teach them that. Yeah, that's serious stuff. back in the day, you could make cold calls. Back in the 80s, you could make cold calls and pretty near get a hit. I would say I was closing two, maybe three, but two out of five cold calls.
And is that because they didn't have call display?
That correct that. Plus, there was no internet around for them to have access. So they in most cases, retailers and customers welcomed an individual coming in with a new product to the market. So there, at the back in the days, those factories were looking for individuals who knew how to prospect and cold call because that's how they got the word out.
Yep.
So we'd walk into your place of business. Is the owner available? Give me 1 second. And your name? I'm Greg, and we've got this. That was our chance to say, and we've got this new product that we. You'd hope they carried the same message. And once you got the opportunity or had the opportunity to get in, of course, you slowed it down. You came in, and it wasn't a 50% close ratio, but yet it was 1 to 2. Leap forward to today. Most businesses are inundated, to your point, with robocalls and people knocking on the door. So you're dismissed. A lot of times you're even talking to the owner when you're asking, is the owner available by chance? Anyhow, I teach them how to understand that, and that hard work pays off. So you got to stay on point those 14, 16-hour days, pound it.
So is that that's your 8 steps? Like that's where you're really focusing on, and that's where you start to be able to reflect after that call of, what you were saying earlier is, Greg, you didn't spend enough time doing this. You didn't spend enough time doing this, and that was the process.
Correct. When it comes to the 8 steps of consultative selling, that's where the ride along. So let me give you an example. Take a plumbing agency in Vancouver. What I do today is I reach out to the owner and have of course, discovery call, no different than what you're going to end up doing as part of your opening door. And my conversation is short and sweet, is to give them the background as to who I am and the pedigree that you and I bring coming from the trade. And Vreshen's witnessed it, to come as a tradesperson to all levels of industry.
Huge advantage.
No different. Oh, bud,
advantage.
It's 100%. You can't say it quick enough, and you, of course, you say it eloquently, say it professionally. I always laugh about this, Vreshen, it's just like if you're in the presence of a police officer. Count your watch. Typically, within 30 seconds to maybe a minute, they're going to tell you that I'm a cop, and they've got their day clothes on, right? So, and that's common if you watch. But same with us. You're coming now with pedigree and value, and to Vreshen's point, it elevates you to the next level to say, okay, you've got my attention. Now you've got 30 seconds. I'll give you a minute. So you've got to now give them that 2-floor elevator story that the door opens. You go, okay, got it. I just undid the second lock. So it's 2 to the left, 3 to the right, 2 to the left, click. I like to paint the picture for the students. Beautiful. You've got their attention. It's one more, 2 to the left, 2 to the right, 2 to the left, click, it opens. Then you see the body language react or relax on them. You hear the voice tone change. Of course, that becomes a very key point in my training process, is the 6th, 7th, and 8th sense, which is not really talked about. So I train you and the team to watch for that body language, listen for that voice tone, watch those eyes, listen for it, because you're going to spend most of your time on a phone, and understanding what's happening in that person's world based on their voice tone while you're talking with them.
Yep.
Why not make them aware of it? So now you've got the attention. And what I say is, I'd like to spend Monday morning with yourself and the management team to have an upload as to what we're going to do for over the week. I'm going to spend a week with you. We are going to spend probably 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, Monday morning, like to meet early. And then the balance of Monday, I'm going to spend with your inside team, your inside sales team, your customer service team, your warehouse team. And I'm going to meet with them and have informal 20-minute, half-hour discovery meetings with them. And you'd be shocked what you actually hear in those meetings, because I'll meet them in the boardroom. And when one would go out, another one will come in. So, hey, Jeff. So, Jeff, because, of course, I've met you in the open office earlier that morning before we met with the ownership. And typically you'll hear the ownership say, Greg brings, they talk about my pedigree for me. So Greg is a plumber, ex-agent owner, and now has worked with several well-recognized manufacturers in international sales and or vice president of sales now as a consulting company. So we're going to allow Greg. I'm opening the hood and allowing him to look into. So you're going to meet with Greg over the coming day, and Greg's going to ride with our sales team to see the inefficiencies and efficiencies. So we in fact do that. I buy them lunch on the first day, and then you ready? The Monday evening, I'll drive to the furthest point of the territory, and it may be 3 hours to the next morning to meet you, Jeff, the outside sales professional, to ride with you for the day. To ride with you for the day. And thankfully, I've been blessed to, I don't know, close to 7,000 ride-alongs in my career. So you get a real quick understanding within that 30 seconds to a minute of jumping in the vehicle, how organized they are, cleanliness, consistency. And I actually say to the agency owner before I come into town, it's critical that we meet an A customer, a B customer, and a C customer. I want to see how they communicate with each level. Don't take me to all your superstar customers, and give me a heads up as to what are your objectives once you meet with the A, B, and C customer. My goal is to, are they on point? Do they stay on point? How do they segue into each? Do they let it breathe? Are they asking the right questions? Are they letting the customer answer? Because what I'm doing there is, as course, marking and scoring them. So I do that for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. I come back into town to the head office, go for dinner, light dinner, one glass of wine maximum. It's on point, glass of wine, and we have a chance to, of course, upload and, of course, download and share with them at a high level my findings. And then Friday morning, I have them all in a room and spend the day training them, running through and reiterating what I've learned. I don't get into the inefficiencies. I leave that for the ownership. I leave that and then run down through my life's lessons as they pertain to the personalities and the skill sets of the individuals. And I hone in on areas that they really need to concentrate on, such as, I piece together the inside sales and outside sales team. There are some inconsistencies as to the information that's flowing. I really think that the inside sales team need to ride along with your outside sales team for 3 days, not a half a day, for 3 days. I want them to go and have a beer with the outside salesman the one night, and the second night, not several beers, but to build that bond and actually see what the outside sales team actually do. And then I want the outside sales team to come in and have a 2 sets of headphones and listen to every call that comes in and watch how much, and those 80 calls a day, 80 calls a day that individual takes and has to manage and come up with the correct answers as the face of the company or the voice of the company. So you, outside sales professional, you're the face of the company and you're the face of the manufacturer when they're not in market with you. So you have a lot of responsibilities. You need to come prepared so you've got value, so that the next time you show up, it's important, the ownership or the business owner will allow you into their offices. If you don't bring value, then don't even show up.
So by the time you get there and you kind of, get a background of the company and you go and meet the outside salespeople, the inside salespeople, so on and so forth, how much training have these individuals, if any, how much do they actually have as you get there? Like what is a percentage?
The percentage is well below 25%. It's street smarts. Yeah. Well below 25%.
So it's a lot of those, hey, you're good at talking, why don't you be in sales?
Yep.
And then they've just kind of, like you said, it's the hard knocks and just the street level learning. And then now they're looking at an opportunity to perhaps upskill and upgrade, and hence, you're in
Correct.
the picture.
And do you think because of the lack of training, it is actually tough for those different roles to maintain a consistent message? Because
you're right. You're right. That's why I say to the ownership, now, don't be fooled. You're not going to see behavior change just from my 1 week here.
yes.
And this is why when I share with them the things that I recommend that they do, the ownership, have to stay on that behavior change because they've not invested in the sales training in past. And that 1 week is not going to do anything for the majority. Even the veterans who are just look you off like, really? I already know all this. No, you, the ownership, now have the opportunity to ride along. I even say to the ownership, when's the last time you rode with your outside salesman? I never have. Well, I look at him as a professional and say, well, shame on you. Your expectations are that this individual is driving the business and the face of your company, and you don't even know how they dress. Is their vehicle organized? Do they, when they get into the meeting, do they, if the customer asks for information on another line, do they have to leave the meeting, which is a faux pas, go to their car and come back to find the guy on the telephone and typing on in his computer so that the heat of the moment, you don't see all that.
Yep.
So it's critical you ride along with them. And lastly, what I even find even more horrifying, as you can hear in my voice tone, is the pricing. They look at it as how much? Like they actually can't even, they don't understand the value, even though everything I speak of is actual fact and they know better.
Yeah.
They're going to bucket the price. Oh my God, it's that much money. So guys, the value you're going to get out of this is tenfold. The return is within the first month, but you have to stay on your people to maintain that, and get that behavior change where it needs to be.
And so something that you would do is what would you actually find out what their identity is too? Because and the reason I ask that is that there's a lot of wholesales that will be very commodity based wholesale where they sell trailers of things for low percentages. And,
correct.
And then their salespeople, not understanding that, are trying to go after these specialty projects and so on and so forth. And there's no wrong way to sell, right? Like commodity-based wholesales are very important in the market. They have a very different skill set that's required, but it's understanding that's what we are. And then you get the very specialized wholesales that are very aware of maybe new technologies on the market, but they try and have accounts with all these people who may just do commercial warehouses and it's just about commodity. Like they couldn't care about the latest feature on a widget, right?
Correct. And see, that company wouldn't be interested in my or your services. That company, to your point, is just pure price and fill rate. What's the availability? What's my price?
Do you really even categorize those people as not to take away from a title or a role, but in a true sense of the word, would you even describe that as sales?
No, I absolutely would. Like I look at the sales industry as something like we talked about earlier about qualifying, right? Am I a gatekeeper? Am I a decision maker? It's about qualifying who that is. I think that the wholesales that understand their identity are extremely important. And it doesn't matter if it's a commodity. We are a price-based wholesale. We buy in these large volumes in order to get you the best price. And the other wholesales that are the specialist ones shouldn't even be concerned with that. Like we don't carry the product that supports that industry because everything we have here, we've got trained people that we've invested so much money that for them to waste their time or to spend time, I shouldn't say waste, but to spend time on that is not profitable for us, right?
Makes sense.
You're 100% correct. And you hit the nail on the head. That independent distributor who figured out the combination of having the product on the shelf and lots of it, they get, just because of the fill rate, will earn more money. They're more profitable. And you're right, they'll leave the commodities. So you ask a question. Do I understand? Yes, I do. And I go one step further. So I look at my target audience. The plumbing distributor is critical. They are also on my list because the plumbing distributor of all of them, don't spend next to a nickel on training their sales team. So thankfully, I've built my brand in America. I've been traveling in the U.S. since 1997. And I've built my brand and I was very cautious and cognizant of it, meaning I knew that I was building my personal brand in a market. It's as small as our market is up here. It's an intimate industry. So, there's not many Gillespies in the plumbing industry, coast to coast of 350 million people. So I learned early on that I need to be cognizant of how I talk to people, preparation, who I'm targeting. So here's what happens as I'm now making those joint sales calls. You're going to love this. Making those joint sales calls and ride-alongs, 50% or more of the time, the plumbing distributors that we're calling on, I know them. I don't tell the rep, by the way. I roll in. We did one in the Carolinas, 1st of March, just before COVID, and we pulled into this parking lot. It was 6:30 in the morning. It was dark, and I said, "I'll be damned." And the owner's name is Grover. Well, I met Grover years ago. He and his wife. Well, I'll be darned if I said to the fellow, does Grover sit in this office? He does. Do you know Grover? I says, matter of fact, I do. Anyhow, fast forward, we got into the meeting. We're talking, and here I'm watching our rep, or watching my client's rep, and he's engaging. The fellow he was engaging with, I knew him as well. So it just turned into this bit of a love fest, catching up, and it was very comfortable. But yet the sales pro, which I was impressed, once we got through all the niceties and the greetings, he was on point, stayed on point, and then this happened. Didn't Grover walk in? We hadn't seen each other for 15 years. He looked at me, I looked at him, and he went, "Oh my God, what are you doing, Greg?" So I told him, my own consulting company. In fact, I'm here with Snyder Incorporated, ride-alongs with their team, which sends a good message to the wholesalers that their agency is investing money in their people.
Yeah.
So that was part of our plan and strategy, what you're going to do with your team and your clients. So we wanted to get that message out. He said, "Are you working with distributors?" I said, "Heck yes." "Well, listen, give me a call. I've got 5 branches. And hang on a second." He said, "Brad," he called the sales manager for the 5. "I want you to introduce you to Greg Gillespie, blah, 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 blah. Greg's going to circle back, and chances are we're going to do business with. He's going to do ride-alongs and working with us." And then he asked this, "Do you know our system, our operating system that we use in our branches?" I said, "Heck yes, very familiar." He said, "Perfect." So that'll be $10,000 US per branch times 5. And I'll spend 5 weeks in that territory with him and with those. I come back for a second round with them because the ownership is too far removed from the sales reps, the outside sales rep at the plumbing wholesale level. But yes, I target them. But lastly, this is so important. If you've not heard of we all know that that manufacturers and in any industry use multiple different personality tests and evaluations on prospective hires or potential new hires. And there's Wonderlic out there, and there's several. The one that personally caught my attention, is the predictive index. And I'm a big predictive index. So what I choose to do is, you're going to love this. I'm the predictive index. How do I say this? I'm a predictive index agent at this point. So I'm an extension. So Vresh, this is new news for you. I now work for Predictive Index.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So they grant me now the access. So before let's say it's your company, it's something you may want to consider, gentlemen, is before I go into Snyder Incorporated, I'll actually send a link to every one of the sales team. In this case, there were 18 people in the organization. I sent a Predictive Index link to each one. Of course, I tipped the ownership off. I was about to do this so they could send a mass email. In fact, I wanted them just to take my email and forward it to their team. And it was, "When you receive it, please fill it out." Well, they all did. The best part, long before I even set step in their place of business, I already had a great understanding as to who Jeff was, who Tom is, who's Vresh, what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, where are his key points, what are pain points. So all of a sudden, I could speak at this a whole different level just by having that predictive index in my arsenal.
Perfect.
Maybe I want to touch on the topic we were just talking about working in America for a good chunk of your career. I mean, it's to someone like myself, driver type personality. America seems like, the holy land for anyone that really wants to get into sales. And I know that Jeff and I often have conversation about how we got to get there at some point in time in our career just to witness, the sheer rate at which business is done. Maybe we can take a couple minutes here and kind of contrast with your experience working in both markets. What would you highlight as some of the kind of big discrepancies between the markets?
Oh, beautiful. Good question. Well, the first one that immediately comes to mind and what actually put me into the US market is our great nation is very passive. We're a very passive country. Our business style is very passive. When you have a driver style type personality, as in Brescian and myself, I don't know Tom, excuse me, I don't know, of course I don't know Tom, but I don't know yourself, Jeff, but just watching your body language, listen to your voice tone, I see you as a very calm professional coming in with all your ducks lined up so that the customer or potential client looks and goes, this is a no-brainer. Where Bresh and I come in with our guns are loaded with real bullets and we're shooting them before we even get through the door. Come on, let's go. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
No, I've never
Well,
seen that in Russian.
right? I'm sure. Well, there it is. We don't our business style and our personality style does not work in the Canadian marketplace, unfortunately. If you're selling commodities, maybe. But with respect to the industry that we're serving, they'll put up with us, especially if you're consistent. That's one of the key words I just keep pounding into everyone I work with. Especially if you're consistent, they'll allow you to be that driver personality. You'll hear things such as when you walk into the customers I'm speaking of, because I've proven myself, as has Vresh and other driver type personalities. We've proven ourselves to be consistent with everything we've committed to over a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month period that they've got to put up with this. They're not happy with it. And here comes. The example would be you walk into a place of business and it's 8:30 in the morning and the ownership looks at you and says, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not ready for that this morning. No, 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 no. So it's a backhanded compliment in its own crazy way. You've earned that because you were consistent. Mm-hmm. However, they do look at you kind of funny to say, wow, way too much energy. You're here. You need to be here.
Yeah.
So that's the Canadian. Lastly, because our market is so, in terms of geography, so vast coast to coast, you have pockets. And that's what's difficult in our nation is getting material to pockets. And in those pockets are strong manufacturers, strong distributors, and strong reps. They do everything every day in our nation, fellas. This is so important. Our company, our nation, whether you're in the food service industry, plumbing industry, every city, every person lives in protect my business, protect my share, protect my business. And they're protecting their business with rebates. They're protecting their business with trips. They're protecting their business with, should I say it again? Rebates. And everybody wants a rebate. The plumber on the job site wants a rebate. The project manager in the job site wants a rebate. The ownership of the plumbing distributor, plumbing contractor, they want a rebate. The counter personnel at the distributor wants a rebate. The wholesaler doesn't only want a branch rebate, they want a provincial rebate, and they need a national rebate. Wow. So where's the money? So that's all about protecting the business. And manufacturers are smart. They'll go to the plumbing distributor and say, hey, you manage the rebate. We'll give you the money. You distribute it to your customers. This way, we're still being a nice guy, and you get to look great in front of your customer. Well, that's they're backing their way in as a manufacturer to protect their share and maintain a price position so the rebate keeps the price up, but yet the price doesn't become an objective and it doesn't get eroded.
Yeah, so it's funny, the rebates. I hate them.
Who doesn't?
So, and the reason I almost look at the rebates in terms of a wholesale side as the manufacturer having to protect the wholesale for if they go too low.
100% correct. A quick story on that. You're bang on the nut. And unfortunately, in our nation, I can't speak for other European countries and other countries, but our nation is just rampant with rebates, and it's gotten worse. And 100% was what that is. In fact, the ex-president of Crane Plumbing Canada, he was a prior president with Caterpillar, excuse me, American, and they made some big cuts back in the 80s. And his name, Maury Marwood, true story. Maury Marwood, he was at a CIPH function. So here's a president of Crane Canada, a $60 million corporation. And when he heard of how rampant the rebates were in our nation, he actually got up in front of a CIPH, and you know the CIPH folks, they're great folks. It's their life. This is they're passionate about it. He said, "Let me get this straight. We hold money back and give it back to the plumbing distributors because they don't know how to run their businesses." He actually said that out loud. So that did not help him, by the way. So you're right. To come back to that, here's what they say in America. This is 1997. Webster Supply, true story, another true story. As the comedians say, the best part about telling a true story is that it's true. Here it comes. Webster Supply, Brooklyn, New York. I get off the airplane. I'm working with Coronado Product. It's my very first call in the United States of America. We've got I hired an agent. The agent picked me up at LaGuardia Airport. He drove me to Webster Plumbing Supply. We walked in, sat down. I presented and this is key, I teach the team, you don't sell the features, folks. You sell the benefits. Surprising when people don't know that. Yeah. So I'm running through the features, double corrugation, and the benefit of the double corrugation of the box is less returns for you and blah, blah, blah. So he said, well, what's my price? $69 for the steel, $33, $27. He said, this is the owner. And then he hollered, George, get in here. Big voice. And I turn around, there's George hanging off the door jamb. And he said, the owner, I forget his name, unfortunately. He said, tell him exactly what you just told me. So I did. And as I'm sharing with him, not standing up, kind of leaning back, the two are playing eye contact games with each other. And George was the purchasing agent. And when I said $69, he was giving the eye contact to the owner, like, that's a good price. Door double corrugated. And you'll love it. As we were running down through, he left, and here comes the rebate conversation. I said, that $69 price, and this, there's a rebate that we've also put in of 3%. And he sat back, and he looked at me kind of funny. He said, rebate? Now, this is a client. Rebate? Why would I want you to hold my money? He says, we know how to run our business. I don't want a rebate. So you're telling me there's 3% off that $69. I said, yes, I'm telling you that. Can you invoice me at $69 less 3%? Yes, I can. Great. George, cut this man a purchase order. You ready? For 2 truckloads of products. 2 truckloads. Yeah. True story. I get in the car with Mark Amodio. I said, no, my first call, first presentation, first order. I said, Mark, are you kidding me? He said, Gillespie, it's America. And Vreshen's right. Vreshen's right. You won't believe the amount of business that's falling off the tables. And if Webster Supply said no to me, you ready? Within a half a mile in nearly every direction was another customer.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I'm cutting a deal or working up a deal right now, the program with the company that has 450 luxury showrooms in America. 450.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in America, it's the classic. You've heard it. The harder you work, you've heard it. You've seen it on movies. In America, it's the land of opportunity. You know what happens in America? You can't even start sweating quick enough. You need to have sweat dripping off your chin. You need to be so passionate about your product and so professional and so to the point and so polished. This is it. This is the fill rate. This is the stock. This is the competitor's model number is XYZ. Here's currently what you're paying for it. And here's what the price point that comes in with us. And here's the savings. Great. Cut that man an order. Give that man an order because they've got so much business. In Canada, a contractor could have 4 projects.
Yep.
In America, there's 44 projects. So you know what? I can use that on, I'll tell you what, we're going to use your product on this project over here. Beautiful. That's all we want because we're not after your first project. We're after your next project, not the first one.
But I think the importance of that, though, Canada, US, is that those steps are the exact same. That the relevancy of those 8 steps are the same. Doesn't matter what country, doesn't matter size. Scale
Agreed.
obviously is going to
Yep.
change, but those
Yep.
steps are always that accountability, the
Yep.
process, the reflection, everything like that,
The
right?
framework is the framework.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. You could be, but yet in America, there's a lot of reserved folks there.
Mhm.
However, it's all about bigger's better. It's well, you see it, you watch. When you come in, it's just amazing. The business is just falling off. Well, let me give you an example. So the year is 1997. 15 months later, we sold the second and third shift out at the factory. And I quickly realized that, holy cow, why would I want to be tripping over myself fighting and getting ran on rebates in our market when in America? So that's when I went to work with a company who had, ironically, $1,200,000 worth of current business. And this is so important you hear this. This is July 1999. And the company was a Canadian manufacturer of commercial plumbing products. Mm-hmm. They decided that they wanted to introduce and open up the US market. Well, we did. I joined the firm in July of 99. They couldn't pay me the $125,000 that I was after, but they could afford $75,000. This is that similar story to taking the showroom position. So the owner said, I can't afford 125, but I can afford 75,000. I said, let me think about it. So I did. Fast forward to come back for the second round of meetings. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll take your 75,000. We'll grow that grow that base. But what we need to do is put a 3% US dollar, very important US dollar quarterly bonus. And it's on the list. It's not what you make, gentlemen. It's what you negotiate. And then I threw this little curler out. And a 5% retained earning position with the company. Yes. And he was like, whoa. And then I asked in the next meeting for 5% of the sell. So if we do what we're going to do, we're going to wake up the giants, and they're going to come to you with a $55 million check, and they're going to park you. So I was written into the contract for a 5%. The year 2000, hang on to your hat, the year 2000, I traveled 304 days that year in the US market and calling on and doing discovery work at the engineer level, distributor level, agency level. The next year, and the next 4, 7, 8, 9 years, 285 days a year, I was in that market. We grew the business from $1.2 million, no agents. I was employee number 4. We grew the business to 80 employees, 40 rep agencies covering the nation, $27 million in 7 years. Yeah.
And how many days did you spend in Canada once you got to the US?
Well, yeah, exactly. You know it. Think about it. So in 2000, and Michael, the owner, did the same thing. I hired regional managers and burnt through, this is so important, 7 cell phones in 10 years.
Yes.
Burnt through them. Yeah. Can imagine.
I'm glad they're making them better today now.
Isn't that the truth? So pioneering is the key in America, especially when you go with select distribution with the next competitor, your next competing wholesaler needs to buy double your inventory. They love it. Mm-hmm. They love it. Say, great, let me go out and go. So you guys need to get down there, get to the Seattle market. You'll be blown away.
Yeah.
With kind of a perspective, with kind of an aim of maybe getting a little bit deeper into some of the America stuff, and in another conversation sometime, as we are kind of getting short on time here. Maybe we wanted to kind of close on a couple of things that are more current. Let's talk about COVID. I know it's the topic of the month. It's the flavor of the week. What do you see as kind of the post-lockdown world, the post-apocalyptic mechanical industry? What is that going to look like, just from a bare bones perspective?
Great question. I've been interviewing and talking to the 50 different reps I work with in the U.S., and I've been, of course, talking with them since, call it March 14th. Here's what's occurring in their nation, and of course, similar ours. We know that back 3 weeks ago, there were an awful lot of Zoom and webinars occurring, and they're still occurring, as we know. The agencies, are being literally living on commission, so they eat what they kill, and of course, thankfully, the manufacturers didn't close, so they're still fulfilling orders. There's a significant drop in sales. So then I asked them, "What are you doing?" And one of them said, "Greg, I learned long ago, it's not our customers' responsibility to remember us. It's our responsibility to remind our customers that we exist." So I'm talking to my customers daily. So I asked them that same question, Bresh, and every one of them. So what do you see post? Well, a couple of things. Because plumbing is an essential service required for the health protection of North America and others, plumbing distributors are open. Plumbing distributors are not allowing any factory reps or rep agencies to visit their showrooms and or their places of business. So from afar, as you well know, what's occurring is it'll be June, July is what I'm hearing in the majority of the nation, all predicated on the fact that they hope that Atlanta, California, and other states that are easing up on isolation, that there isn't a second round. If that happens, the bottom will fall out. If it doesn't happen, what will occur is you, Jeff, Tom, myself will all be wearing masks in every meeting on all airplanes. We'll be meeting in parking lots. We'll be meeting at more than an arm's length. That will carry on until I believe this. Once a pill or a solution, I try to think of the medication vaccine is created. That's when the stress level will come down and folks will start shaking hands and having a less cautious of it.
And maybe kind of a final thought on how, like you just said, the whole kind of fear around shaking hands, physical contact, close encounters. Assuming, let's assume the worst instead of assuming the best in this scenario. Let's say we're looking at an industry wide, a real industry reopening in October, November, right? We got another 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months to go until then. What should, perhaps someone that, you've trained in your days as a sales coach, as well as anybody else listening, what would be kind of, especially salespeople, what could be strategies that they use in, either in platforms like this with the webinar or on the phone or email? What, we kind of talked about this last week. That was the topic of our podcast was, selling from home.
Right.
What does that look like? And what, advice or thoughts do you have to anyone that would be facing that?
Good question. What we're doing is our rep partners reached out back in early April and asked that very question. Could you please prepare a PowerPoint covering your product line so that I can get my customers on the line, on the phone, and run through the product? And then they asked phase 2. So this is just in the last 2 weeks. Can you give me a special, a hot number, something that will drive business for me? So we're now preparing promotions for our rep partners to get out to the specific customers, whether it's a luxury showroom or plumbing distributor, plumbing contractor. Uh-huh. So that's phase 2, our specials and promotions.
Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's funny. I even have seen like the lottery show homes now where they're virtual tours, right?
Right.
As opposed to getting out. So I think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to kind of kickstart, and I don't know a lot about the U.S., but it's going to kickstart us to having better preparation in terms of PowerPoints when we're doing these virtual meetings, kind of time frames that we're bound by. And so I think the lessons that people are going to learn is maybe to be better prepared for the meetings, right? So that's what I'm hoping that comes out of this. So
hey, if people can get better at the end of things, it's beneficial to all, right? Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again, Greg, for joining us today. And I think we definitely learned a lot, and a lot of things that even though we've had a lot of contact in the years working together, there's a lot of things that even I've kind of new to me, and we're definitely going to do this sometime soon. Hopefully, at some point, we'll be able to do this in person, get you in the room, and have some have some fierce debates and conversations.
I'd love that. I would love that.
That'd be awesome. Fantastic.
Thank you, gentlemen. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
and
Thanks, Greg.
stay safe out there, I guess.
Absolutely.
As well. Thank you,
Cheers.
gentlemen.
All right.